So, I was going to make this recording a few days ago. However, just about the same time I sat down and started making a recording, my dad decided to play with the weed whacker. So, I decided to put off making a recording because I've been trying to speak over a weed whacker for the entire thing. So, today's recording is on what's it like living as an otherkin or a Therian. And the answer to that really varies depending on the individual, because each person who is one has a different experience based on how they deal with the experience. So you get everything from people like me who, for the most part, I live a perfectly normal life and it doesn't really affect me too much outside of a few details. You have some people who it's a huge part of their identity that needs to be constantly pushed. Um, and then you have other people who pretty much curl into a ball and don't know what to do with themselves. And personally, to me, the solution for those people is find something that you're going to make as a goal for your life and then follow that thing and focus on that rather than focusing on the negative of, well, you're not, your natural self right now, so you're just in a state of waiting to become back to your natural self. I think that's kind of a sad place to be. So moving on. So speaking from my personal experience, because that's what I can speak best to, for me on a normal day, you really wouldn't notice very much unless you saw me when I'm talking to my friends, and some of the wording that I'll occasionally use. You really wouldn't notice or suspect a thing. I go to work like any other like any other person. I drive a vehicle like any other person. Basically normal stuff. The few details are, one, I'm a vegetarian, because once I realized, once I found out what I was and kind of what my purpose is, it seemed kind of hypocritical, for instance, to be sitting there saying slaughterhouses are bad while, digging into a burger. And you very, at least in my case, you very quickly become disgusted even by the idea. And it actually, in my case, it was also kind of an overnight switch from not being vegetarian to being vegetarian. It was almost, it was pretty much, it was instantaneous. And the other is some of the wording that I'll select to use. So very commonly, when I am referring to a trait of humanity, I refer to it, and I tend to look at it as as someone looking from the outside in, and it does give me the ability to uniquely, you might say, assess the world around me. So, for instance, for an aspect of society, I don't view the society as my society. Even though I'm currently living inside that society, it's not my culture, it's not my society. So I'm not invested in that society. So it's easier for me to look critically at the society that I'm living in because I'm not invested in it. And off the top of my head, unfortunately, I can't think of any one particular example off the top of my head. I know a lot of times my such views will be on things like religion, where and this is an example of where it's hard to look at your own society while you're in that society and invested in that society. Was I used to be, because I was raised to be very Christian. And like, for instance, the kind of family I was raised in, we didn't go to very many churches for very long. And the reason for that was those churches weren't Christian enough for us. And when we did finally find a church we liked, we went there for 3 hours on Sunday, for two services in the morning, and then there was another evening service, and then we had a booster service in the evening, and then we had a booster service on Wednesday, and on a daily basis we also had it was mandatory growing up to watch Pastor Arnold Murray for an hour a day, and sometimes it was 2 hours if he had like a special. It was a 2 hour special on. And on top of that, absolutely everything with what you did was in the context of religion. And we weren't a part of any one denomination because for my mom, none of them were Christian enough. So we were kind of you might say, like an independent. So because of that, while I was very Christian, I could not tolerate any questioning of Christianity at all, even from myself. And at one point, I remember as a young child, at one point I kind of had this inkling that, well, what if God isn't real? And the idea, the whole idea, terrified me because I've been brought up in this for so long like this, without even questioning it. And by this point now, to me, even the act of questioning it itself was a major sin. So I was terrified of the fact that these thoughts were even in my head at all, and did my best to put them to rest as quickly as possible. So it made it hard for me to criticize the religion because I was invested in the religion. And then once I was out of it, some of the things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way while I was in it, because it kind of didn't jive with my moral code, I was now able to see that wow, this is kind of monstrous. So after so similarly within human society, where at least where I'm located on the planet at this time, is very human centric. It has the idea of humans are the masters of the universe. Everything here is for humans to use. The animals exist to serve man. So when you're when you look at it that kind of centric, when you look at it from in your society, it's you may not see the bad in it. Self see the bad in it, and I commonly now do see the bad in it. And one particular one, which I think a lot of people can see, because this doesn't require you to see anything bad about yourself, but one in particular is the where a lot of people tend to live in their own little world, and it absolutely bugs me to no end, because a lot of times they get in my way, they get in other people's way, and it's a lot of times it's completely avoidable. For instance, at work, I've lost count how many times people park their car in the middle of the parking lot and then walk off, because of course they're the only car that ever has to go through there, and it doesn't matter if they're blocking anyone, because they're not blocking them, they're just blocking everybody else. So anyway, bringing this back, I look at a lot of times refer to things from that, you might say, like third person. So when I refer I'll refer to humans a lot of times, it's like you people, and I know for a lot of humans, that's racist and whatnot. What do you mean, you people? But in my case, it means you people, as in not horses. Because I have a vastly different moral code than what a lot of humans have. For instance, my moral code does not distinguish, for instance, the value of a human life as greater than the value of my own people, because I view other horses, and to more or less an extent other animals that I protect, as my people. So I don't view, for instance, humans being able to make a profit off of non-humans as important. I also tend not to like distinguishing humans and animals, because humans are animals, and many times when I refer to everything that's not human, I tend to refer to them as non-human animals, because this idea of of humans are people, but animals are not, to me is completely incorrect, and it further adds to that divide of okay, it's okay to do X to this non-human, but it's not okay to do it to a human. And to me, if it's not okay to do it to a human, it's not okay to do it to anyone. In that same kind of context, the one thing I kind of held over from Christianity is the idea of doing unto others as you would have others do unto you. But I extend that to everyone, not just other humans. So, for me, for instance, I would really hate to be eaten. I would hate for somebody to kill me and eat me. So I don't eat other people. So, for me, getting back to what it's like, living on a daily basis, for me, for the most part, there isn't really, you don't really notice it that much. I have a job, so every day, I go to work, I do my job as best as I can, I drive home, I try to avoid running into stuff, I try to avoid being run into, buy stuff with the money that I earn from my job. I go on the internet, I make YouTube videos, and I fix my vehicles. So there's not a lot of that constant having to sit there and remind myself and think about constantly about what I am, because even when I was in my true body, I wasn't constantly thinking of myself as a winged horse. Just like for most humans, as they're going about their day, they're not constantly reminding themselves that they're human. Now, occasionally, some things will show up that it will make me think of that. For instance, when I have a particularly equine reaction to something, that actually makes me, pulls me back and makes me think about being, being equine a little bit more, than and a lot bit more than the non-equine, non-otherkin equine would be. So that is the one little area where you do have that. The other thing for me is because of the nature of how I'm here, I still am able to see and talk to my mates from my herd from while I was still a winged horse, because they're still alive even if they're not in this realm. And perhaps I'll explain fully how I am able to do this, but but pretty much I can still see and talk to them. So commonly I will go and I will ask for their advice on things, or their opinions on things, or simply just have a conversation with them. And so this is something that's a little bit different than what a normal human, for instance, is going to experience, because a normal human is not talking to a person who only they're able to see, because the person is literally their being is being projected to you, or in my case, it's being projected to me. So on a daily basis, I see things that a lot of people don't see. Most humans, for instance, don't get to see a unicorn walking around on a daily basis. Most humans do not see a winged mare flying above their car on a daily basis, and so on and so forth. So that is one thing that's a little bit different. And I know I've had a few of my I've had at least like one of my friends. He's commenting on before he's kind of glad that he can't see her, because if Marigold, for instance, suddenly showed herself to him, he would probably freak out. And it's kind of understandable. She's absolutely massive and pretty much a demigod. So, but that's something that I see every day, and her voice I hear every day, and I hear my other mates' voices every day. Wow, it started raining really hard out there. So, with that, I'm going to end this video at this point. I'll probably touch on some more details in other videos, but for now, I think that's where I'll cut this one off at.